On this episode, we're replacing a fuel line. Yes, we are. Oh, okay, so we're not upgrading a fuel line. We're not repairing a fuel line. We are replacing a fuel line that had a hasty repair in order to drive the car up to the Vick Autosports anniversary party. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So a couple videos back, when I did the pressure test on the fuel system, the AN fitting, the 90-degree bend AN fitting started leaking around the seal for the hose. Like right here where this little O-ring is. And I didn't have a 90-degree, so I had to use some other fittings. So we have a straight AN to 3/8 hose. That's got a clamp. Then we got a 90 with a clamp and another clamp over here. And then this hose runs down to our fuel. And then this one runs down to our fuel pump. Let me get this out of the way. Again. Sorry, that hurt. And then this is our heat shield. And so far it doesn't vibrate. So what I think happened was this 3/8 hose is very flexible. This steel braided stuff is not. So I had braided hose coming up to here and it was pushing up a little bit on the fitting, and I think that's what compromised the seal. But also the hose was resting up against this and the firewall, and the vibrations from the pump were transmitted all the way through the hard line. So this was all vibrating and it was causing some kerfluffling. So for the trip up to Vick's, I replaced it with a rubber hose and then, had to get it in here, and I didn't have a 90. So I ordered some more fittings. And this is probably going to puke a little fuel around. But we'll see. Not too bad. And there's nothing wrong with this setup. Functionally, it works. The only thing is, instead of having one hose connection, now we have 3. So we have, 3 potential leak points or 2 extra potential leak points. So I'm going to just switch this over. Stop. And then we'll only have 1. I can tilt this a little bit. Maybe it'll stop dripping. No, it's not. Everything's going to drip. Everything's going to drip. It's okay. So let me bust off these hoses. Or these hose clamps. So my 90 was one of those shark bite connectors. It's half inch. It's a pain to get inside this 3/8, but you can do it. And then it's got good ridges on it for clamping purposes so it doesn't leak. I'm gonna throw this back in the box and we may use it for something else. And then to replace it, I have this. So this will screw into here, and then this goes into that. And it's a little bit long, but we can trim it up to about right there, and then we can angle it any way we want, really. And then this is a little loose. But then this one was a little tight. I need a different size, maybe. So there's a 16.2, which is really close. Might actually work. There's also a 17 that I like better. Okay, cool. So now we have to get this inside this, like that. Then we give this a clamp. Like that. And then I want to tighten this up. Now my hose is a little loose, tight, my hose is tight. Sorry. Okay, I like that. Even though it's dripping all over me. And that's that. So pressure test, check for leaks. We're good. So these AN fittings, you don't have to put tape around it. They have some little teeny tiny rubber washers that go in here. But what we're working with is these flat surfaces. So this is a flat surface in here, and then this cone shape on the inside. This cone shape on the inside mounts up with that. And that's what makes your seal. And they stay tight. The only time I've had a problem is when the little rubber seal in here leaks up because of something going wrong. So then I got my heat shield. It goes like this. And this is just kind of the way it goes for now. Like that. Got it. And this big air filter, which wants to hang up on my heat shield now. But it's workable. Hey, stay. Stay where you belong. Like that. Okay. That's done. See, does it fire off? So once it warms up past 150 degrees, then the idle stabilizes. What's happening is that the temperature sender is telling the ECU that the motor's cold and it's throwing more fuel. So that's why the AFR is down into the 11s. And then it slowly ticks up into the low 12s. It's a little bit richer at idle than I want, but it's close. So the problem with this system, this L-Jetronic, with the way this motor is set up now, is I need more fuel in the mid-range and the top end. And so if you look at my marks, this was the old tuning mark for the, let's just call it the January motor that I destroyed. And then here we are on the April motor. So I'm plus 5 ticks of fuel because of that header system. And so when I'm throwing wide open, it's reading where I want. It's giving me, you know, mid 12s for AFR. The problem is now the spring is so weak at the low end that it's over fueling a little bit, because that's how much more air is flowing. So it was tuned great without the header, and then with the header on we had to make changes. And so the sacrifice is a little bit of low end richness for adequate fuel rate at upper RPMs. And there's really not much I can do about that, because the spring rate is, I don't know, it's not, the spring tensioner rater finger is probably not adjustable. If I could get a little bit more up here, that'd be great, but I need less up here. So moving this indicator with this screw is not going to help, because it's going to maintain the same throw. That's where we're at for now with this system. Some other things we could do, but it's going to have a balanced effect, is if I widen the plug gap out to 50 thousandths, that will lean out the lower end, might increase those numbers a little bit at idle, but it's also going to increase the numbers at wide open throttle and everything else. So it'll lean it out across the range. So I'll have to make a couple of runs and decide if I want that or not. I disconnected the Pogues and put this air filter on there because that's blowing air into the motor, which is not being read over here. So it's a balancing act of trying to get the right amount of flow and get the right amount of throw on this air fuel meter, and then, you know, keeping the engine tuned properly. But, you know, I'm close. It's only been, you know, a week, but I'm close. So I want to talk about the trophy that I won. How's that? It says it still runs for now, 2025. If you're going to put this kind of stuff on the internet, you must have room for humor. Okay? So that's the best way I can put it. You got to have room for humor. If you can't laugh at what you're doing, you're going to have a miserable time. So let's talk about the trip. So one way from my place to Vick Autosports is about 190 miles, plus or minus. My wife followed me in the Tucson. She was carrying parts that I was giving away. She was carrying my toolbox and some other stuff, just in case, right? You know me, I'm a little bit anxious. I was a lot anxious. Yes, I was very anxious. There was some anxiety levels were increased because of the cooling system. And we haven't built up pressure yet, so I'm gonna pop this cap. So this thing is filled up about halfway to about right here. Almost exactly halfway, and it's warm. So from the initial startup where I had the big funnel sticking out of here, the system was full. It was topped off. About mile number 50, there was coolant puking out of the overflow line. Probably because the system was a little overfilled. And so my wife's calling me on the phone, telling me about it. I'm watching the gauges. The gauges stayed normal. I was running about 182 degrees, 182, 185. And then every time it would tick over 185 to 186, I would tense up. 187, tense up even more. 188, tense up even more. And then it would go back down a little bit. So it fluctuated between about 185 and 188. At the stop lights, the red lights, it would go up to about 191. I could hear the fans come on and it would go down. And then we took off again, and she called me some more, telling me we're still puking out of the overflow. We stopped for lunch. I let the car cool off. I popped the cap. It was filled up. I squeezed on the hoses a little bit. It didn't drop back down, so we made it all the way to Vick Autosports. The further we went, the less she called as far as puking out of the overflow tube. And then when I got to Vick's, on the way home, she said it did it just a little bit. So I think it had to self-regulate the amount it had in there, hopefully. I am considering installing a overflow tank, the single hose overflow tank, and then I can plug this in to an overflow tank, and then it'll catch a puke tank, it'll catch everything, and then maybe suck it back in and keep the system regulated like that. I could take this hose, run it through here into the, I could put it inside because there ain't a lot of room left in here. So that's something for later on. I'll decide, but I'm probably going to do it, right? Why not? Why wouldn't I? And then as far as the way the car ran, let's talk about that. So I made some notes. I put them on the Facebook, the YouTube side. I filled up 3 times. Okay, I filled up 3 times when we left, when we got there, and when we got home. So total miles driven by number of gallons pumped equaled about 29.3 miles per gallon. That was really nice. And that's driving 75 to 80 miles an hour for, 50 miles at a time, 75 miles at a time. It's Texas. There's long stretches with nothing in it except road. The average temperature seemed to hover around 188. The oil pressure was about 38 psi the whole time. Of course, it went down when I was idling at a red light, and then as we, based upon RPM, the higher the RPM, the more oil pressure. But right around 4K, where it seemed to be running, was 38. So, pretty good. The exhaust sounds awesome. It's a little bit loud. So, there's no radio in the car yet. I didn't wear my earbuds to listen to music or anything because I was busy listening to every little noise coming out of the car. Every time I hit a bump, every time, something backfired in front of me or around me, I was heightened state of alert, waiting for my wife to call and tell me something fell off the car and she ran over it and we have to pull over. But none of that happened. The way home was a lot more relaxed. I was used to the sounds. I had the idle adjusted a little bit better. So there wasn't as much bogging down into the 600 RPM range at the red lights. And I had a little bit more fun. I had a little bit more fun driving home because I went a little bit faster. I pushed it through some curves, you know, testing it out a little bit. But that's all me. That's all me and my anxiety. I will say that I took it out for a high speed run, and I was +6 on total mile per hour. So I saw about 110 on the GPS. The previous version without the header did 104, maybe 105 once. So +4, +5, +6. And I think we can get some more out of it. So next up is we're going to the dyno. We're going to the dyno tomorrow. We're going to drive to Houston. We're going to strap the car down and we're going to put some numbers and see what happens. That'll give you a baseline of what this build can do for you if you do the same things that I have done minus all of the braking. Let's put it that way. So a knife-edged crank, lightened flywheel, high compression pistons, the race cam, with stock fuel injection that we tuned. Oh, the big PS60. The coil is important. It's got an, you know, the injectors are new, the fuel pump is new. So, you know, if you're putting older parts on a rebuilt motor, you're going to have to work on some other stuff too that's going to fail along the way. I want to say I'm happy with this right now. I'm very happy with this right now. I am very happy with this right now. I am still waiting for it to break, but that's me. So we'll just continue with what we're doing. I got a couple little minor tweaks I want to do. I'm going to add another gauge or two. I have a remote oil filter system I want to install. I'm going to move the coil inside the cab and put the oil filter system over there. It's going to have an oil pressure gauge on it so you can read that from inside the car. Just some other things, just, you know, some stuff for me. But I will keep you updated. I am going to do a before and after video. So I made a couple runs with the previous January motor, and I got some good exhaust sounds, and so I'll do the same thing with this exhaust, and then, you know, we can run them side by side so you can hear the difference. It sounds great, it really does. It's just a little loud when you're driving it, but not too bad. Once I get the AC charged up and we're running AC, everything's closed, it'll probably be a lot more bearable. I want to say thank you for putting up with the dumb stuff that I do, especially the part where I break things unintentionally twice. Some of your comments are supportive and it means a lot. The other thing, you know, I'm busy staring at this temperature gauge, oil pressure gauge, and AFR the entire time I'm driving. I'm trying to work it out where I can look at the other gauge, the other temperature gauge, but my arm's usually in the way. I will say that at the Vick Autosports, one of the guys came up and said that he was having a great time driving his car down there to the anniversary party, and then all of a sudden he said, "Look at the gauges." ELDEST Build said, "Make sure you watch the gauges," and so he did, and everything was fine. But, you know, it's one of those things where it's something you're going to have to, you know, keep in your sight path while you're driving. You're watching the road, you're watching your rear view, you're watching the gauges. That way, in case anything goes up, you can turn it off and prevent any damage from occurring. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for hitting the subscribe button. I got some more stuff to do to this car. And, you know, don't forget, I got a whole nother platform, the 85 outside that we're going to redo as well. But that's, you know, later on. Got to finish this truck first. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good day.